You read him at The Athletic. You follow him on Twitter at Andy_Staples, and you listen to his podcast. Wherever you get our podcast, you get his as well. The Andy Staples Shows. He talks tons of college football and amazing foods. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What is up, Andy? How are you?
What's going on, guys?
Not a whole lot. You heard Dunaway lead into you there, mentioned Tommy Rees. If I told you Alabama hired Tommy Rees, your reaction to that would be what?
Well, somebody finally said, okay, I'll learn your playbook and call it, because that is, but listen, people are acting like that's a problem. That's a reason for their success over the past few years. Mike Gundy did the same thing at Oklahoma State, and it's how he went through a lot of, offensive coordinators, and they remain relatively successful. Last year, not so much, but one of the reasons that Alabama's been successful is that playbook dates back into, Jim McElwain, Doug Nussmeier, and they can do literally everything out of it. Lane added some stuff. Brian Dable added some stuff. Mike Loxley added some stuff. Bill O'Brien added some stuff. And it's a big menu. And the thing is, the OC is going to be able to call the flavor he wants out of that playbook. But I kind of like that they can do a lot of things, and it forces them to teach the players a lot of things. The receivers learn to run the route tree properly. The linemen learn to block, gap scheme, zone scheme, lots of different things that when they then audition for the NFL teams are like, hey, you can do all this stuff. That's great. Let's pick you higher than we pick somebody else. And so I understand that's why they do it. In this day and age, it's hard, though, because so many offensive coordinators are like, this is my system. This is what I do. And I kind of like the ones that can go, you know what? I'm going to mold this thing based on what I have here. And I think you can look at Alabama over the past few years and see how different the offense was for Bryce Young, how different it was for Mac Jones, what they ran with Tua, what they ran with Jalen. They've been great at being flexible with what their players can do. So it's funny because I know that's been the frustration trying to fill this job, but I still think it's a sound strategy.
Tommy Rees's former boss, Brian Kelly, in year one wins the SEC West. I know it's February 3rd, but I'll ask you anyway. Going into this season, would you go Alabama or LSU to win the West?
I still have a hard time picking against Alabama. I'd like to know what their offense is going to look like. I mean, I like to know who the starting quarterback's going to be. And remember, everything I just said still applies. Like, whoever they hire at offensive coordinator, what the offense will look like will depend on who the starting quarterback is. And so, is that Jalen Milroe? Is that Ty Simpson? Is that somebody they get out of? I don't foresee it being somebody they get out of the portal after spring. But is that how are they handling that? So I don't know yet. I mean, I thought Jaden Daniels took a lot of steps forward. I think we've learned now, looking at Jaden Daniels' college career, when there's good players around him, he plays pretty well. You go back to his freshman year at Arizona State, where they had Benjamin at running back and they had Brandon Ayuk at receiver. He was pretty darn good. He struggles when there's not much talent around him there. He gets to LSU, and it took a little while, but I thought, kind of by the Florida game, he felt more comfortable as a passer, and that offense was really clicking. And I also think when you've got two freshman tackles, there will be growing pains, but those dudes are studs, Campbell and Jones. So I like that, but I still have a very tough time picking against Alabama, just knowing, one, the kind of talent Nick Saban just brought in, the kind of talent he's been bringing in. It's still, we're not far enough away from Alabama dominating college football completely to be picking against them yet. Sorry.
For the Alabama fan that's watching us right now, win probability if they're holding out hope for Jeremy Pruitt on the other side of the coordinator hire for Nick Saban, is that near 0% now? Is it still alive at all, or do you not see a path at all to Jeremy Pruitt being on the Alabama staff?
I can't imagine that, because they haven't had a committee on infractions hearing on the stuff at Tennessee. You don't know what might come down the pipe on him. It just seems like a lot of variables. And also, look, we've seen double secret probation in the SEC before. where somebody says, I'd like to hire this person, and it's communicated to them, maybe you shouldn't. And that doesn't last forever, because that person was Hugh Freeze, and that person is now a head coach in the SEC. So that's not a forever thing. But right now, with a notice of allegations out there, no idea what the penalties would be, I would imagine it'd be very difficult. And remember, these are recruiting violations that he's accused of, which means the penalties would come in the form of recruiting restrictions that could potentially make it very hard for somebody to do their job. So I don't know. I think that one feels like it'd be too hard to do right now.
Andy Staples is with us, The Athletic. The Andy Staples Show is a great podcast that you can get wherever you get your podcast. At Andy_Staples on Twitter is where you follow him. At Andy_Staples. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Todd Monken seems awful interested in at least talking to people about NFL jobs. If that job did come open, you would think, again, the line would start at the door, though Kirby has not necessarily shown the propensity to have a wide open, do whatever you want offense. Not that Nick Saban has, but Nick Saban seems to have been a little more adventurous in offensive coordinators than what Kirby is willing to be.
Oh, no, I think Todd Monken's very adventurous. So, I just think they use what they've got.
Yeah.
Well, they don't use
They're
Brock
the best
Bowers.
tight ends in the country.
I know.
So
there's a split on this show. So Dunaway really likes Todd Monken. Lance and I think Todd Monken's just I said the other day, and you're going to laugh. I can already tell Andy's going to laugh at this. I said 30 guys could have done what Todd Monken did this year.
Nope. Disagree. You saw with kind of similar talent when James Coley was the OC what that looked like. They had a former walk-on quarterback, and they figured out how best to use everybody.
Except Brock Bowers.
They didn't figure out how to use their leading receiver?
I think
they used him pretty well.
I think he averaged 3 touches a game. I mean, look, it doesn't matter. They won a national championship.
How many games did they win?
They won 15.
All of them.
Yeah.
How did the season end?
Oh, it ended
65-7 win in the national title. Let's not split hairs about usage rates.
Okay. I'm just saying Brock Bowers might be the best player in college football, and he didn't get enough touches in my opinion. But again, it didn't matter.
And if they try to force feed him the ball, defenses aren't stupid. So maybe they did the right thing. Maybe they did the thing they should have done.
I work with a lot of money ballers here. Their analytics.
I like Monken. And look, if he wants to go back to the NFL, because those offenses were actually pretty prolific when he was in Tampa Bay, but Jameis Winston was also throwing it to the other team a lot. So, if depending on the situation he gets into, Tampa, it sounds like, is one of the options. They don't know what they're going to do at quarterback there. So that's an interesting situation. You've got Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask. Do you draft somebody? So, I'll be curious to see what he decides. But remember, guys, Mike Bobo's sitting right there. Bobo's a good offensive coordinator. I realize, and I have been a big proponent of the run the damn ball Bobo meme. Like, there's that one play at South Carolina. I can't even remember which year it is, but they're on the goal line, and it's like 3rd and 1. And it's like, what are you doing? Just hand it to the big guy who's fast behind your big offense. But if you look at Bobo's offenses through the years, he's actually a pretty creative offensive coordinator. So I'd be fine if Monken left and Kirby just goes, hey, Mike, pop on up there. Because here's why. You know who was great at doing that for years and years and years and years and years and years? Having somebody and trusted waiting in the wings, ready to take over?
Nick Saban.
Yeah. Isn't it odd that now Kirby is in that situation? Dan Lanning leaves. Oh, hi, Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp. You're right here. How about you run the defense now? And if Todd Monken leaves, if Kirby wants, he can go hire somebody. But he can also go, hey, Mike Bobo, you're a pretty good SEC offensive coordinator. You already know these guys. Why don't you just do this? Like, that's what Saban used to do. And now Saban's out here, the plane's landing in South Bend with cameras on it.
Okay, Andy, if I asked you, better next 3 years based on expectations, Deion at Colorado or Jimbo Fisher at A&M?
I still think Deion's expectations are low enough that he can exceed them. Jimbo's expectations are national title or bust. So I think Deion getting them to be like an 8-win team feels like a lot easier call than Jimbo getting A&M to be an SEC title, national title type team.
Listen, I hate asking reporters who have great sources about other people's sourcing, but the discussion this morning in this part has turned quickly to Oklahoma and Texas and their departure from the Big 12 and how maybe the negotiations have stalled. Do you have a thought on that reporting? And do you think there is still a path that we have Sooners and Longhorns in the SEC in 2024?
I still think there's a path because I don't think they would have put out a 1-year schedule if they thought that they were going to be there in 24. I think they would have put out a 2-year schedule. And here's the deal. They just got to get it done. I mean, the Big 12 people were the ones who decided, hey, let's open the door to this. Oklahoma and Texas were fine waiting till 2023, 2025. They didn't really want to, but they were willing to do it. And then the Big 12 folks were like, hey, new beginning, new TV contract. Let's get this done. And the idea is, and I think it's a reasonable one, that it helps make whole those 8 Big 12 teams that are remaining because they'd had to take a little haircut to give some money to the 4 new teams coming in. And it helps, give that money back to them. And everybody makes a little more than they would have. Texas and Oklahoma will still make more than they would have because they're going to the SEC a year early. And, ultimately they will make more money. So I just think they need to figure it out. It would be very silly if they let it get bogged down now, because by putting out that 2023 schedule, that's the Big 12 saying, hey, we're expecting them not to be here. So, because they would have put out a matching 2024 schedule with it, and they didn't. So I understand it's contentious, and I've talked to somebody about it last week and was surprised at how contentious it's gotten. And I just think everybody needs to step back and realize you're both better off being done with this, because like the attitude at Texas and Oklahoma is like, we didn't have any say in which schools they were going to choose to bring in, and don't want to get sent to those schools to play away games. Like, you also didn't tell them you were leaving for the SEC, so it's kind of you're kind of both here, both in the same boat. So just get it done and figure it out.
Describe for us, please, as you leave here, the best, most unique thing you've recently eaten.
Oh, I don't know if it's unique, but I did have just a phenomenal smoked turkey sandwich at Meat Boss down in Mobile when I was there for the Senior Bowl this week. They have a deal where you pick your meat, you pick your toppings, you pick your bread, and they have some unusual toppings. They're the only barbecue restaurant I know of that offers pepper jelly as a topping.
Oh,
and I've done pepper jelly before on a pulled pork sandwich, and it was very good. But it's even better on a turkey sandwich. So you go sweet Hawaiian roll, turkey, pepper jelly.
Yes, sir.
Yes. It was awesome.
Sign me right up.
I'm a big pepper jelly fan. That does sound fantastic.
Yeah, Meat Boss in Mobile. I'll be there. Andy Staples, thank you very much for the time, Andy. Have a great weekend. We always appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, go follow him on Twitter at Andy_Staples. Download and listen to the Andy Staples podcast wherever you get your podcast, The Andy Staples Show, and read him at The Athletic. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.